right, good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I see we moving right along up here.
Yeah, we are.
I should say welcome to Studio 9 DCN. We ended last week with the bulk of the Promised Land secured by the Black nation Israel. After hard-fought battles, the nation was now ready to collect their inheritance. Each tribe was now to receive a portion of land for them to live in and to cultivate. Many were unable to see the fruition of this covenant, but now it's time for those that have to continue and live the type of lifestyle necessary for them to remain in the grace of God. While we look at our own promised land for black people, we must understand that it is more than just a boundaries of a city. We must understand it's more than just north, south, east, and west. We must understand that the promised land, as described by our founding holy patriarch Jeremoji Abebe, is like this. And this is what he said after turning down $100,000 that white folks had offered them, of course with some strings attached. And I quote, "And it's just beginning to seep into their minds that we are serious about it. That when we say self-determination, we mean we're going to run the thing ourselves." He doesn't understand that the promised land is not any definite place. It's the way that you are.
Well,
now he may not know it yet, but we're there already. We are in the promised land. There isn't any way that he can persuade us to go back into Egypt because we have made up our minds. As we ended last week, didn't get really a chance to look at a couple of maps. I want to open up with one of the maps to show where we left off with in terms of the kingdom. First, we remember that the nation Israel had captured 31 kingdoms. And these are listed in Joshua 12, 9 through 24. And this map might be a little blurry, but it shows you where those 31 kingdoms are, and then the scriptures that also relate to those 31 kingdoms. Go to the next slide. Here we have a more defined look at the 12 tribes, the territory that was listed out for the different tribes. Next slide. And here we have a more realistic map of those tribes. And you can see mountain areas, the ranges. My podium is blocking a little bit, but if you put this in relationship to the rest of the world, the nation Israel is just a little smidgen, a smudge of what the entire world is. But when we look at the nation Israel, we understand that the nation Israel, though it's just a smudge, it has affected the entire world in terms of the religion and doctrines. We often have an over-exaggerated sense of self. And that over-exaggerated sense of self is going to be shown in a little bit regarding the nation Israel in terms of after they have entered the promised land. But one of the things that we really did not talk about is the 12 tribes, how they interacted with one another. And one thing about the 12 tribes is that Jacob named his sons, and those became the 12 tribes of Israel. And those 12 sons make up what we referred to as the nation of Israel. And as he named those sons, he blessed them and gave them callings. And you'll find that on the back of your insert, entitled Select Blessings Issued to the Black Nation Israel. These tribes were bound together under a banner of being one nation. However, each tribe had their own identity. We go to the next slide. We're going to talk about that identity. Next slide. It's kind of like when you receive your African name, it has purpose, it has meaning. And so Jacob, as he named his sons, were giving them names of purpose and meaning. And Moses also, in the wilderness period, comes back and re-blesses, if you will, the 12 tribes and giving them names and giving them blessings about what they're being charged to do as a nation. Reuben. Each nation had their own symbol to represent who they were. They also had their own stone, or gemstone, as part of representation of their tribe. Simeon, see their emblem. Then we go to their, looks kind of shiny and nice there, like they had that on their finger with them. They're called to cling to God, the tribe of Levi. We know those were the priests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their gemstone. Called to raise up a standard. You're all familiar with the Lion of Judah. They kind of set the bar, set the standard for the nation of Israel. Their gemstone, the emerald. Tribe of Dan. And as you look at the tribes and look on the back of your bulletin, you can kind of see how these things parallel in terms of their call and their blessings. Call to wrestle in prayer. All right. That's right. Call to stand alone. True. See, their emblem kind of reflects that. Call to bring joy. All right. Call to work. Okay, emblem. A mule, hard working out. Call to do business. Commerce focus. Call to suffer. Remember, Joseph suffered a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
This slide probably doesn't show. The tribe of Joseph basically was divided up, making the two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh.
Cool. Is that wheat?
I'm sorry.
Is that emblem wheat?
Yes. Called to consume. The tribe of Benjamin. Wolf, consumer, hunter. So these are the tribes, and their symbols, and what they stood for. The stones were in the breastplate of the priest. And when they went to service, they were always represented. Thank you, grandson and kid, you covered it right up for us. And we as individuals in particular, sometimes as a group, have an over-exaggerated sense of self-worth.
Oh, yeah.
If I can get someone to read Joshua 17:14 for me. We have our Bibles today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone, just read it out loud and clear for me. Joshua 17, verse 14.
Then northward, the boundary bent toward Hanathon and ended at the plain of Ephrathah. Besides this, there were Atad, Nalala, Shimron.
Yeah, 17, 14.
No, that seems like a different.
17, 14.
That's right before.
14.
Yeah.
The house of Joseph spoke thus to Joshua, why have you given me for inheritance only one share or one portion? And my people are many because Yahweh has so blessed me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
They just now getting freedom and already. You gotta try. Wait a minute now. I tried it, we dope. We much better than them tried over there. You just give me a little piece of land. You know, Joshua, he wasn't going to argue about it. He gave them more land, or land that the Canaanites were still in, and just basically said that you're going to have to subdue the Canaanites. But bottom line is there is no getting around work. You're still going to have to work when you're free.
That's right.
You have to work out for self-determination. You have to work to maintain what you have worked for. Many times we get complacent, right? We feel like we got all the answers. Our group knows more than the other group. We do more than that group. My money speaks for my work. I don't need to rehearse. I sing circles around everybody else. I just deliver the message. I don't need to work the message. And it goes on and on and on. In other words, we got an over-exaggerated sense of self, like I'm the junk, I'm everything.
Wow.
If you uphold your end of the bargain with God, God will do the same for you.
Well,
Get someone to read Joshua for me, 21, verse 44.
they took possession of it and settled there. Yahweh granted them peace on all their frontiers, just as he had sworn to their fathers, and of all their enemies, not one had managed to stand against them.
All right, isn't that a beautiful thing? One day we're looking forward to saying that.
That's right.
That there stood not a man of all their enemies before them.
Well,
Holding on to their beliefs, they were finally blessed as a nation. It took hundreds of years, but they were finally in control of their own lives.
well,
We must then ask ourselves the question, are we true believers in the tenets that we profess as a church and that the church has established? The nation Israel took hundreds of years to get to that point.
well,
Our church, we're coming up on 63 years.
That's right.
Marcus Garvey had a few decades. But at some point, we have to be consistent believers in black nationalism
Amen.
That's right.
and stop being sidetracked by those who want to go back to Egypt
Well,
come on now.
when it's not popular to be black and proud, when it's not the end thing or the vogue thing to have more interest in your people than others, or putting your people first. Assumptions cannot guide your actions and reactions towards one another. Joshua 22, 15 and 16, if I could get a reader there. Joshua 22, 15 and 16.
Assumptions cannot guide your actions and reactions toward one another. There can never be too much understanding of your history.
The actual scripture verse.
The scriptures in the book of Joshua. In the Bible.
They came to the children of Reuben and to the children of Gad and to the half tribe of Manasseh, to the land of Gilead, and they spoke with them, saying, Thus says the whole congregation of Yahweh, what trespass is this that you have committed against the God of Israel, to turn away today from following Yahweh, in that you have built yourselves an altar to rebel today against Yahweh.
All right.
My Lord.
So what we have is an incident where the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and part of Manasseh are returning to the other side of the Jordan River, where their inherited land is. They were charged initially by Joshua to join the nation as they crossed the Jordan and help fight to liberate the land for the rest of the tribes. And then after that liberation, they were to return back across the Jordan to their own land that was given them. And on the way back, they stopped to build an altar before they crossed the Jordan. The rest of the tribes, they heard about this, and they come rushing out, knowing what the punishment is for not following Yahweh. They are prepared to go to war with them. So guess what? As they get to dialogue, they tell them that we were building the altar so that it would remain as a reminder to the people that we are one people, a symbol for future generations. So when they ask, why are those tribes on the other side of the Jordan, do they not believe in Yahweh as we do? You know how that is. You get caught up in hearsay and they say. You're going over to the other side of the Jordan, another group is on this side of the Jordan, and they're looking at each other strange, like, I don't know what y'all doing over there. You know how we do sometimes here. That group, that person, they ain't right. You hear they undermining everything. You know they talking that all that kind of stuff. You may just want to go and ask them.
Yeah.
Ask them yourself.
Right.
Let them explain what they are doing or saying. And you might find out that they are trying to set up structures for future generations so they understand the pillars and the strength that the church is founded on.
Well,
There can never be too much understanding of your history. I know we know that.
That's right.
So let's have someone read Joshua 23, verse 1 to 3.
I'm reading from the John Maxwell Leadership Bible, so it might be different from Jerusalem. Now it came to pass, a long time after the Lord had given rest to Israel from all their enemies round about, that Joshua was old, advanced in age, and Joshua called for all Israel, for their elders, for their heads, for their judges, and for their officers. And he said to them, I am old, advanced in age. You have seen all that the Lord your God has done to all these nations because of you. For the Lord your God is he who has fought for you.
Thank you. All right. So just like Moses, Joshua getting on up there, 110 the scripture says, and knowing that he is close to his last days on earth, he has some last words for the entire nation. He goes at great length to talk about the journey that the nation has gone through. Beginning with Abraham, he recounts every major event. Your history is imperative. You have got to understand where you come from. You have to have a reason for pushing forward when you want to just sit down and become a spectator of the world rather than an active change agent for your world. Next week, we begin to celebrate our 63rd anniversary.
Well, all right.
This is a time and a chance to tell the Black Christian national story. Our theme, preserving our great legacy. So like Joshua, we must talk about the journey. you must seek to learn about the journey.
Well,
You have to read about the journey.
that's right.
You have to ask people about the journey. And then you must ask yourself, am I ready to continue the journey?
Well,
We don't have an altar at the Jordan to remind you before you go across it. But we do have a legacy center, and all you got to do is just cross the parking lot.
All right then.
Just as each tribe had symbols and had a group purpose, we strengthen our groups with symbols and define our purpose, which in turn strengthens the nation. A short historical story.
well,
One nation comprised of multiple groups trying to outdo each other and raise the most funds to expand to Atlanta. Every group in its group meetings would plan and strategize where they were going to reach or collect funds for the nation. Back then, it was top secret where groups were going. Wasn't nobody telling you where you were going. And I remember two groups heading out to western Michigan. Neither one knew they were going to the same area. It was cold, and dark, and snowing. And actually, our group got there first. And we out there reaching, and the other group pulls up, and we just smiling and waving. Now, I know that they were mad and upset after driving a few hours and somebody else is there, but we didn't get out and argue and fuss and fight with each other. What we did was we came together as two groups. What little money we had in our pocket, we put together, and we put some people on a boat, and they went on across from Michigan side to the Illinois side and reached in Chicago.
well,
One nation with one purpose,
that's right.
but made up of groups and tribes. Everyone that has been through the trial by fire must tell it and then tell it again.
Well,
Joshua 24, 29 and 31, I'll go on and read. And it came to pass, after these things, that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that overlived Joshua, and which had known all the works of the Lord that he had done for Israel. Now, some elders here in the house, you hear what verse 31 says.
Yeah.
Israel served the Lord all the days past Joshua, those that knew what took place.
well,
Why did they do this? Because they would not let those that did not experience it not understand what took place and what they must do to enjoy that freedom. Or should I say, they understood how you can sit on a block of buildings completely paid for. That you need to understand how you can live in an apartment complex completely paid for.
my Lord, have
And
mercy.
yes, when you stick your chest out about 1,000 acres of farmland, you got to understand how it got completely paid for.
Well,
But not only that, how about the politicians that would call before voting on anything significant taking place? Stores would make sure that their products and services were up to code. And that's just part of the story. What about how lives of black people who had no hope in themselves found new meaning and purpose in their life?
well,
How about those who had made it in the white man's world turned their back on that world?
well,
As Jeremiah stated, refused to go to Egypt,
well,
but instead founded a microscopic black promised land and worked tirelessly to grow that promised land both physically and spiritually.
well,
All of us, all of our groups should have a calling, just as the 12 tribes had a specific calling. Our group, S5, we are the keepers of
that's
the
right.
land.
That's right, brother.
I don't know what your group might be called, and if it's not called something, go find something to be called.
Oh, yeah.
But our group, we're called to uplift our history, our ideals, what we stand for and why we stand for it. And because of that, we strengthen the nation.
Yes.
We
Well.
strengthen ourselves.
Yes.
It was a time when groups would stand together when we were called for a task or to reach a goal. And we would have many pep rallies.
Yes.
And groups would stand up proudly stating who they were,
Yes.
what they stood for,
Mhm.
and challenge the other group. Outdo me.
Yes.
Do better than I do.
Well,
That's what building a nation is all about. Charging one another. Positive competition to get things done.
Amen.
This is how you build a nation. Everyone pumping everyone else up to outdo each other and do more. We're going to do a demonstration. Yes,
Come on, y'all.
a
See
demonstration.
what it feels like.
And show you what it feels
You want to
like.
come up?
No.
Right.
Right.
Together.
We are Walenzi Wamoto, keepers of the flame. Like a burning bush, we shall not be consumed. We are Walenzi Wamoto. We are Ezekiel's wheel within the wheel, the moving spirit of God. We are Walenzi Wamoto. Like the crucified black Messiah, thought dead, we have risen. We are Walenzi Wamoto, keepers of the flame. Fan the flame, set the world on fire. 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 Burn, Walenzi, burn.
That's what it's all about. All of us working together in our specializations and what we know, and every group charged to do something positive for the nation. It's not about this group or that group.
Well,
It's about the shrine of the Black Madonna,
well,
the Black Christian Nationalist movement. Amen.